Right, this episode of digital marketing and politics and other stuff from the coalface, I'm going to just do something that we don't normally do. There was an email came in just before we started recording this, and it was about 12 fundamental steps for creating an effective SEO strategy. Right, so it's from Search Engine Land, so it's it's pseudo.
Was this the one that got bought by SEMrush recently?
Yes, in fact it is. What I thought we might do is actually look at them in a kind of irreverent way and see whether we agree with those 12 steps and what those 12 steps mean in a practical sense for business owners as opposed to like a geeky sense of 12 things to do. It's just nonsense, all that stuff. So I'm just going to go through them. Number 1, align SEO with business goals and define KPIs. Do you disagree with that?
I don't. Well, no, because it doesn't mean anything.
Go on. What do you think it means? Let's cover some of these things off and put them into plain English.
Here's a fun idea. Like, what are my business goals? Well, I want to grow my business. My KPI is revenue. Align my SEO with my desire to grow revenue. Make it good. I'm struggling to think it.
Okay,
where
so
in the world
here's
that's
my
meaningful.
take on it. Then, if you take a website and do search engine optimization on it, right? Maybe buy a load of crappy links to it and get people to it, get traffic to it. That traffic may well not turn into good business.
Sure. So you're
because
saying
the two things are not aligned. You've got, like we don't care what our website looks like as long as
We've
people
got loads
see
of traffic.
Do the SEO, get loads of traffic to it.
Actually,
so aligning. Yeah. That's one way of looking at that particular thing, I think.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Well, yeah, actually, it's really interesting that you say that because I was making fun of a situation where somebody wouldn't have figured out that, the idea of SEO is to improve revenue. But I'm also remembering a situation I was in where the SEO team were literally reporting on traffic growth and everybody in the C-suite was like, look, traffic's growing and had never thought to ask, is revenue growing? Maybe it's not so stupid, actually.
Yeah. They didn't go, so what?
Yeah, well, it feels really fundamental, but yeah, it's a fair point.
So aligning SEO with business goals. So I mean, what that did make me think, like if we get an inquiry in, as we do from time to time, which is like we need somebody to help us with SEO, just SEO. That's a tactic, the tactic of doing search engine optimization. We prefer gigs. Most of our gigs are more rounded than that. It's like we need to generate business. We want leads. How can you help us with that? Well, certainly SEO will be one of the tactics that we'll employ, but it's not like we are not a dedicated SEO agency, but sometimes we do get SEO inquiries in, and that's one of the conversations that we will have straight away. Is we'll try and understand or try and communicate and educate people and help them understand that getting the traffic is only part of the problem. If people are not convinced, if they don't see a compelling offer when they land on your website, it's very easy to hit the back button and go and find somebody else who does. So you have to connect your offer, your business proposition with the search engine optimization that you're doing, and define the KPIs. If the KPI that gets you out of bed in the morning is the number of visitors to your website, irrespective of whether that's generating revenue, fine. But it's a stupid thing to measure.
That's wrong.
It's not.
Also,
it's not,
rankings. I saw an SEO report from an agency quite recently, actually, and the first thing it had was a page on like rankings up, rankings down. It's like, dude, websites rank for so many random keywords that are never, ever, ever going to make you any money. Like it doesn't matter. It just fundamentally doesn't matter. What matters is, is this increase in traffic or rankings or whatever actually?
What's the engagement look like?
Yeah.
What does the revenue look like? Yeah. What are the inquiries looking like?
Yeah.
Okay. The next one was set realistic expectations. Number 2.
Well,
I love that, don't you?
There's the SEO's favourite.
That's probably our hardest job, isn't it?
It's impossible. It's impossible. Because again, back to the thing before, so many of these things are very unknown. And I don't know how it's a real struggle. I mean, some people make an art out of forecasting or bullshitting with SEO and being like, well, this is the traffic growth you can expect.
Yeah.
But it's never really like that once you hit the ground. And I think we do spend a lot of time saying to people, look, these are the mechanics. This is what we're going to do. And this is what we hope the outcome is. But
is it not the case that when people come along, quite often their expectations are either wrong or their expectations are that they don't know what their expectations should be?
Yep.
That's more likely, isn't it? Yep. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Why should they know? It's not what they do. It's what we do.
Yeah, there are part of the problem is SEO agencies. I will say that a lot of misleading expectations. You'll be top of number 1 in Google for X keywords in so many days. That sort of bullshit really does sort of muddy the waters for us. And also, like you say, people coming along and just saying, well, I don't know, what does this get me? And then going from there.
Okay. Some of the next ones are just a bit trashy. And have we exhausted the set realistic expectations thing?
I don't know. I don't know what realistic.
Well, if somebody said to you, like, if somebody came on the phone now, right, and you answered the phone, I know you don't usually answer the phone; it's beneath you. But if you answered the phone, right, and they said, "I'm an accountant. We're a firm of accountants. We're only small. There's like 10 of us or something. We're based in Edinburgh. We're very good. We've got a great reputation, but we think our website should be working harder for us. We didn't really put a lot of time and effort into our website. What are some of the quick things that you could do to try and figure out to help set expectations?" So what would we do? The first thing we would do is say, well, we'll plug the website into SEMrush and see how authoritative it is, right? So if it's getting like 2 out of 100, which isn't unusual.
Yep.
If it's getting like 2 out of 100, you can set expectations by saying your website doesn't have a lot of authority, which is its ability to rank, its ability to appear high up in Google for relevant searches. It doesn't have that. So we would say that, for example, straight away. We could also look at the cost of PPC clicks. Mm-hmm. So say, for example, accountants in Edinburgh, in Google ads would cost 20 quid a click.
Yeah.
Well, that suggests that that's going to be difficult to appear for organically because people are already paying 20 quid to appear in the paid search. So again, these are the mechanisms you might use for setting expectations.
And you can look at volume too. I mean, keyword volume is really important. And you can say, 100 people search for accountants in Edinburgh every month and 200 search for accountants near me while they're in Edinburgh. And look, we can see that there's a decent audience out there. There's lots of people looking for it.
Yeah.
And that, you can get somewhere. But again, I don't think that's what people's expectations are when they come into those conversations. I don't think.
One of the hardest things that I do when I'm speaking to potential customers, especially customers who, and it's quite often the case that they make the investment in a website because the website was maybe looking like it was built in 1902. So they've got a new website. They've been sold a new website. And somehow there are still businesses out there that will build you a nice looking website without thinking at all about what the website's real purpose is, i.e. to generate business. And so they've spent a lot of money on a website. And the hardest conversations to have are those where it's like, we've spent all this money on a website and we're not getting any inquiries. And you do some basic analysis and it's like, well, you're never going to, because there's nothing right about it from the point of view of it generating business for you.
I think, and this is the thing, and I think set expectations is sort of a misleading way of putting it, because what you're actually doing is educating the client.
I didn't write the article.
No, I know you didn't. And I think it's bad.
Stop having a go at me.
I think it's bad. Because what you're effectively doing is educating the client. A lot of people come to us and say, I want to be on page 1 for my top keyword. I know what my top keyword is. I want to be on page 1 for it. You're like, well, it's not your top keyword, actually. There's no intent behind that keyword. People searching it aren't necessarily looking for you, and it's a complete waste of your time.
Yeah.
But setting people's expectations is often about educating them. This is the process. This is what you can actually expect. This is where we hope to get you.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as saying, well, you might not do as well as you think. It is a sort of complex operation. That.
The next thing on there is conduct an SEO audit. of course.
I gotta hate all this language so much, though. I mean, it's just it commoditizes something very complex, which is what you're effectively saying is
at the where you're going with this.
At the beginning of an engagement, you have to contextualize a website. You've got a big lump of HTML that's floating around on the internet, and you've got to work out what does it exist alongside. What are your competitors saying? Where are your competitors ranking? How do they perform? What's their backlink profile like? What's your backlink profile like? What's, how well optimized are all the pages? It's a big, messy, sort of intangible thing. And we've, as an industry, we've done this horrible thing where we're like, well, we'll just commoditize. It's just an audit. And then what lots of really...
You rank for 20 keywords, you've got 4 backlinks.
Yeah, it's like, that's not... It doesn't tell you anything. Yeah, okay. And loads of really bad practitioners do this thing where they'll just plug your site into a piece of software that spits out a pre-generated audit with absolutely no context. And then they're like, here you go. And people will come to us sometimes with these 20-page audits that have been exported from Screaming Frog and be like, well, what do I need to do? And it's like, well, first of all, you can throw that in the bin.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's helpful. I don't think it's a useful... I mean, yes, definitely we audit a website in the sense that we look at it and we look at how it's doing and we look at why it's doing what it's doing and what else is going on around it. But it's not a sort of discrete operation.
The next one's perform keyword research, but I'm not going to talk about that. It's sort of self-explanatory, and we've talked about it in other ones.
Monkey see,
next one was define your most valuable pages.
That's interesting, isn't it? Well,
So what do you think they're driving at there? Because
well-
all I've got here are the bullet points, because they do expand on this in the article, but I haven't read
guess where they're going with this is, if you look at a website in the round, like say you open it up in Search Console, which is free software from Google, tells you how you're ranking for different keywords,
how you're performing in search.
Appear in search. And you can also see from that which pages of your website perform really well. And maybe what they're driving at there is, if you go into Search Console and you look at a page that's, I don't know, just like bumping along on page 2, it's doing quite well, it's getting a bit of traffic, you want to prioritize that one. You can put more effort into making it rank really well and get some quick wins and start to get some momentum. So charitably, I'm going to guess that's what they're driving at.
Okay. Keep content up to date.
Yeah, I mean, what? What does that mean?
I knew you'd like this list.
This hinges on the idea that Google prefers recent content and that you should sort of go through your website periodically and update things. But like mechanically, that can mean all sorts of different things, right? It's like you could be completely rewriting some pages because the information in them's not correct anymore. You could be adding a couple of, clarifying paragraphs and changing some dates on another one. It's generally important and a good idea to make sure that all your content is up to date. Yeah. The idea that you should periodically go through and just like change a couple of letters so that the last updated date changes, and that's somehow going to magically improve your fortunes in Google is, I think, a little bit of a myth.
Yeah, but I think it's fair to say that keeping content up to date can be just a really good thing from a practical point of view. Nothing irks me more than seeing posters for events that happened 2 months ago. It just pisses me off that people took the time to put the posters up, but they didn't go and take the posters down. That's just a little personal, annoyance. But when you're on a website,
I think it's really valid. Yeah.
It's patently out of date, as in there's just information there that shouldn't be there. Yeah.
Where it always worries me is when I'm on like consultancy websites or websites where somebody's professing to give advice about a field, and you go on their blog and the last blog post was updated in like 2017, or do you know what I mean? Like the last event being pulled through into their feed from Facebook was like a post that they went to some conference 6 years ago.
Yes.
It's like, that's not a good look. No. Like, definitely don't do that. No. And definitely don't. I mean, we did an exercise quite recently where we went through, and it wasn't recent, it was about a year ago now. We deleted hundreds of blog posts because they were written.
Well, they were rubbish because I'd written them when I was watching the rugby or something.
Well, they were written to an old standard.
They were.
And that's the other bit where I think that's really important advice. Keep your content up to date, as in keep it in line with current best practices. Yeah. And if you've got a shitload of really crap old content floating around, just bin it.
Mm-hmm. Optimize for user experience. Oh, there's a nice kind of broad-reaching, kind of meaningless. What does that actually mean? Do you think?
Well, I think again, what they're driving at is that content that is engaging, is interesting, is easy for people to interact with, easy to read, maybe easy to find the information that you're coming for. People will stick around for longer. It will generally play better, both to users and search sort of crawl bots.
Yeah, so this is down to the Steve Krug, don't make me think. Yeah. It's down to making it easy for people to get what they need and not sort of like, oh, well, people will have to mouse over this thing here. And
it's interesting though, isn't it? Because the more you read into, I mean, I'm quite interested in user experience and in the way that people use the internet generally from a behavioral point of view. And I think what's really interesting is that advice like that, it's so broad that it's not just meaningless, it's actually harmful. It's like optimize for user experience. Like, do you mean like go on there and make all the buttons green because more people are likely to create green buttons? Mm-hmm. Do you mean like go in there and remove anything that's longer than 4 lines? Or people have these sort of like preset ideas about what user-friendly content is, completely neglecting that that's very audience and niche specific. Yeah. What's easy for a seasoned SEO person to sort of like read and absorb and act on is very different from what a construction worker wants to read on a blog post. It's really, that is, know your audience and produce content that doesn't piss them off. I think that's what they're trying to say, produce things that aren't frustrating.
Plain English.
Yeah. Not deliberately padded, not full of annoying pop-ups. Yeah. Sure. But again, it all comes down to like, think about what the person you want to be reading this blog post or this web page is going to do and how to make that easy for them. Yeah. I
mean, they'll obviously be making reference there to the way that Google will analyze a site. So for example, and it really annoys me, and I'm sure it annoys you as well, is like, how often have you clicked a button on a website and you've clicked the wrong button because just as you were clicking it, it moved. Because as the website comes in, it takes a time to sort of settle down. So things like that. I mean, they're the
Google
things to avoid.
refers to as cumulative layout shift.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, absolutely. There are definitely things that you should always avoid.
Newspaper websites are terrible for it with their horrendous advertising models that they use.
The other thing that I really hate about newspaper websites that I've noticed more and more recently is that newspaper websites that you can't interact with because some pop-up somewhere to advertise you a subscription is busy loading. And it's like, I just want to... just like, sometimes I want to throw my computer out the window.
Yeah, me too. Phone,
definitely.
Laptop, computer.
Don't do shit things, but I think you can probably take that advice of like optimize for user experience a bit further in the other direction and say try to think about things you could add that improve things for your audience.
Okay. This next one you're going to like, and listen carefully. Conduct a competitive analysis. So what you do is you get
really
three people lined up.
Really quick. Yeah.
And you say, right, analyze this website, 3, 2, 1, go. And you see who's the winner. So I think what they meant was a competitor analysis.
I really like that you could take it in the other direction and use competitive as a sort of adjective there as well and just say like it's a really, sort of like angry, it's an analysis that's got to be, sort of out there. Competitive, that's right. Other analysis is shit.
All joking aside, looking at competitors, one of the things that people often misunderstand, if we're in a discovery with a potential new customer, and one of the reasons that we do pro bono discovery work is so that we can really get to know a business and figure out whether we're the right team for them and whether we can genuinely help them and all the rest of it. But, it's amazing how often small businesses, big businesses alike, when you say, who are your competitors? They tell you, and then if you do a Google search, they are not their competitor. They are their perceived competitors. Yeah. Now, that doesn't mean that if they're not online, they're not. If they're not a competitor, that's not true because it's very much the case that a business might be competing with another business who doesn't do particularly well in search, but they know fine well that they take business from them because it's word of mouth, it's referrals, it's that sort of thing. So, I don't want to just be sort of pigeonhole this as like if it's not on Google, it doesn't exist or anything stupid.
Well, it's not about that though, is it? It's more specifically who are you competing with in the arena that you're trying to win in, and I think that's the key bit again, isn't it? We're back to strategy. There's no point in saying, but my competitor is Acme Engineering, who don't have a website at all and who win all their jobs because they have a cracking sales team. Yeah. It's like you compete with them in terms of like the same customer base, but you're not competing with them on Google. No. And that's what we're interested in.
It is.
What I would question is, what step is that?
Oh, it's just this number 8.
Yeah, so why the look at your competitor's website, step number 8 on this SEO checklist rather than step number 3. I mean, you've got this far into the weeds where you're like...
It's almost step number 1. It's like, who's hoovering up all the traffic right now? Who am I going to have to right beat? Now that you might... conceivably want to share of.
If I want to win space in search, who do I have to kick off?
Because that can dictate everything else. Because if somebody's absolutely killing it, you can look at it and even just superficially go, well, you're going to have like a 50, 60, 70 grand budget to even start the process of competing in this space.
And this is the thing, and this is where it comes back to the keyword research, because the amount of times you'll do keyword research knowing who the competitors are and just say, okay, well, that looks like a great keyword, but there's absolutely no chance that we're ever going to rank for it, so forget about it. Mm-hmm. I think, competitor research has to be right at the beginning, really.
Okay, number 9, and we're not going to talk about this, is establishing brand authority and link building. So, I mean, we could have a whole we could just have a whole podcast taking that part, but let's not do that. The next one's quite interesting, though. Integrate SEO into your workflows. Now, I quite like that.
Do you?
Yeah,
I don't know what it means.
Well, if you think about some of our customers who've got fairly expansive websites and they produce a lot of content. And they have no SEO built into that workflow, they're actually only getting some of the bang for the buck of taking the time to produce that content that they could be getting.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, I know you do.
Yeah, I get you. If you've got a massive team of in-house writers and they're churning out content every day and they're not thinking, I should write a title element and a meta description for that, or when I'm putting the headings together, maybe I should think a little bit about who's searching and what they're searching for.
Yeah.
100% awareness of SEO, but it's an interesting one because again, I think you can't say to a content team, do some SEO. You have to go to them with very specific guidelines. These are the keywords we're trying to rank for. This is what we need to be thinking about. Don't cannibalize yourself. You know, if you're writing an article and you optimize it for one keyword, you can't do that again tomorrow.
Yeah.
There's so much nuance there that sort of like, you know, just incorporate SEO. Again, it's sort of reducing it to this sort of finite, discrete
And
thing.
as well as producing the content you want to produce, if you incorporate SEO into workflow, you can do analysis as you start to gather information in the Search Console, and you can actually say, look, there's a lot of interest about this. So you can feed that back to the content team and say, like, it would be beneficial if we had content on our website about X, Y, and Z, because that's of interest to people and it's directly related to the products and services that we offer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so it does make sense to integrate SEO into your workflow. I'm just going to read this one out, but we're not even going to tip our hat to it because it just sounds like the weirdest episode of The Boys ever. It's called Align Your SEO Strategy with Your Customer Funnel. I just don't even want to...
My customer funnel.
I'm not even... Right, but the last one in the list, because it was 12 in all, was report and measure. And this is back to really what we were talking about earlier. You can report, and we have seen countless SEO reports, right, where first of all, the customer never reads them. Oh yeah, the SEO company we have been working with send us this report every month. It's like quite thick. As you say, it's automatically produced. It's just lazy bullshit. And we don't do that. We will report and we will speak to customers and we will provide information, etc.
Yeah.
But why are you laughing so much?
Because marketers, they think they love data. Marketers do love data. They love to hide behind it. They love to use it to obscure truths.
Yeah.
You absolutely, obviously ought to be measuring and reporting what you do. That's a bit of a no-brainer. But like, so much more time and effort needs to be spent thinking about why and what than you think. It's never a case of like, oh, well, we'll just report on leads then. It's like, it's really hard. And I think this is the same with anything in life. You know, it's really hard to drill down to the meat of the problem and find out what you actually need to be measuring and reporting in order to. And weirdly, you know, that's not the end of the process. It loops back round to the beginning. Because as you just sort of tipped your hat to before, if you're not sort of looking at what's happening and integrating it into what you do and sort of feeding the loop, it doesn't get any better. Your strategy just sort of continues until it fizzles out. So yeah, reporting and measuring is really important. But I think, you know, in all honesty, most of the time there are sort of 2 or 3 key metrics you need to be thinking about and reporting on. And that's what actually matters. And like you say, we see so many of these sort of obscure, arcane, almost esoteric reports with, you know, bar graphs over here and a pie chart over here. And it's just meaningless waffle. You know, you drill right down. What we actually care about often is, you know, in an SEO campaign, for example, you know, how much of the traffic that we're driving is converting? Where are they converting? And what do we think we can tell about the keywords that they're using and the audience behavior based on that? It is never a case of like traffic and impressions and all of that stuff. It's just sort of, they're useful lead indicators and they're useful to know, but it's not really what you want to be reporting on, I don't think.
If we're not getting the leads, then whatever we're doing isn't working.
Well, that's the thing, and I always think reporting's best done backwards, isn't it? It's like we've had 6 conversions from search today. You know, those conversions came from these pages. We're pretty sure they were triggered by these sort of search terms. We're pretty sure it was this kind of customer. These are the things they did on the page, and now we're starting to build a full picture of what we can do, which bits we can replicate, which bits could be improved on. But you can't do it the other way around, which is I think how a lot of people look at reporting, which is like, here's a ton of data, figure it out. It's the key to the reporting, I guess, is doing the figuring out for people and then showing them how you got there rather than just giving them a bunch of data and saying, well, work it out.
Okay.